All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. So welcome to our monthly meeting of the Design Review Board, and we can call the meeting to order. Any declarations of conflicts? We just have one item on our agenda today, so can I get an approval of the agenda? Moved by Councillor Beck. Seconded by Mr. Gillis. And can I get, there was the an adoption of the minutes that are in your package from March the 1st. If I can have somebody, moved by Chris Fournier, seconded by Councillor Beck. And any business arising from those minutes that were in your package? Okay, seeing none, we have one report today. It's 231 Richmond Street, and Emily is here to report. And I will just mention that His Worship is going to arrive a little late, and Ken is not able to be with us today. He sends his regrets. So over to you, Emily.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just wait for the slide deck to pull up here. Okay, so the item for your folks' consideration today is the exterior design proposal for 231 Richmond Street. So what's proposed is a 3-story apartment dwelling. It measures about 12 meters in height, and it's proposed to contain 3 dwelling units. This property is located in the 500 lot area. It's just southwest of the Grafton Street, Hillsborough Street intersection, just below Polyclinic, which is a landmark folks might be familiar with. So the PEI Housing Corporation is proposing this building. Their intent is to own and operate it with rent geared to tenants' income. And as a result, the proposal meets the zoning bylaw definition of affordable housing. PEI Housing Corporation has indicated that the existing dwelling has been vacant since 2017, and it's currently the condition of the dwelling is currently uninhabitable. Their intent is to demolish the existing dwelling, which is shown in the image in the bottom left, obviously in the winter time, but it's still in that condition today. They're proposing to demolish the dwelling to accommodate this proposal. So council did consider a major variance application regarding this development back in February of 2022 and approved a reduction in the lot frontage and side yard setback to accommodate it. And that was subject to a couple of conditions, one being that design review board, reviews and accepts the exterior design proposal, and the other that the demolition permit is obtained by the property owner to demolish that existing dwelling with supplementary fire safety plan provided for the fire department's review and acceptance. So the image on the bottom right there does show the location of the subject property. You can see it at the corner of Hensley and Richmond Street. So this rendered view here is of the proposal. So the applicant has indicated, and that being 9 Yard Studio, has indicated that they're proposing horizontal wood siding with a natural tone to wrap the southwest and north facades of the apartment dwelling on the 2nd and 3rd levels, with the ground level southwest and north facades having vertical aluminum siding with a warmer tone. They confirmed there be no exposed fasteners as well on that aluminum siding. And the intent there is to have sort of a break in the material there to break up the mass of the building and provide some interest at street level. The east facade, it's not visible from the street, obviously there, but it's proposed to have non-combustible cladding and with no openings just to meet National Building Code requirements. So the applicant has indicated that they've taken inspiration from the existing dwelling, providing a massing and setbacks that are similar to the existing dwelling, with a gable roof sloping in the same direction as the existing dwelling. The main entry is generally in the same location on Richmond Street, and they're utilizing primarily wood siding material consistent with the existing dwelling. This is an image here of the submitted site plan and the elevation drawings as well. And in your package there, you can see it in the attachments if you want to have a look. So the design review was conducted by Peter Fellows, who's an appointed member of the design review board. Peter reviewed the package that's dated March 27th in the report attachment there. And he offered several comments, mostly, overall supportive of the application. So he noted that the Richmond and Hensley Street facades, they address the street appropriately with a simple approach and clear definition. He noted that although the proposed apartment dwelling is taller relative to adjacent buildings, the proportion and style is similar in nature, and there's that break-in facade material that's proposed to kind of visually minimize the height of the building for folks passing by. The front and flankage facades, he noted, are consistent in look and use of materials. They don't use any they're not mimicking natural materials. With respect to windows, he noted that they're generally consistent in style and match in their location and give off kind of a balanced appearance. He also noted the roof. It's running in appropriate direction. It's consistent with the surrounding neighborhood character. And then he offered kind of this overall conclusion and recommendation that, in the instance that the building isn't salvageable, that the proposal should move forward. It's simple, well-developed, and provides much needed affordable housing in the downtown with very little impact on the surrounding neighborhood. So overall, he was recommending that it move forward. He did offer 2 suggestions, and he kind of clarified that they are just suggestions. They're not kind of contingent on his recommendation. One being that frosted glass be incorporated into the exterior fire escape design, just to kind of screen any personal storage that might be contained within it, and then that landscaping incorporates some shrubbery, and 9 Yards has indicated they'd be willing to incorporate these suggestions as well. So with that in mind, our recommendation is for Design Review Board to accept the proposal as shown in Attachment D to the report, subject to the condition that they maintain that the exposed fasteners will not be located on the front or flankage facade. And there's an additional recommendation there in regard to the exterior fire escape. In the current proposal, it doesn't meet the zoning bylaw setback requirements, although it does meet building code requirements. So we're just suggesting it be modified to meet both requirements, and that, subject to it not being a substantive change, that be prepared to the satisfaction of the design reviewer so they have a look at it before it's finalized to move forward. So that concludes kind of my presentation, folks. I welcome any questions. I can't confirm if the applicant is here. I can check outside if they have. Yeah, thank you, Alex. I think he's going to have a look there. Wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Does anyone have any questions on this? And I know that there's an appeal in place around the applicant's demolition, but I know today we're just here on design review. We're not really here to discuss the other. So I will open it up to anyone else for questions.
Yeah, thank you for that, Madam Chair. So that was one question I did have about the appeal. So we can go ahead and discuss this, and that's totally separate from the other part. We're just doing our work, and it's whatever happens on the appeal happens on the appeal. Would that be correct, Alex?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. That is a separate process.
Okay. I had a couple of other questions. I wasn't here, of course, in February 2022 when this was originally proposed, but it was determined, I understand, that it was vacant for 5 years and that it was rendered or deemed uninhabitable. Can you enlighten me a little bit as to why that decision was made, or what rendered it, or how did that come about? How did it come about that this was uninhabitable? Because I think that is part of the... Anyway, if you could maybe shed some light on that.
So that's a great question, and I'm sure we can have it answered, but keep in mind that doesn't really fall into the terms of reference of design review. But for just a little bit of background.
That's all I'm
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, maybe I'll answer that, and if Emily she's been dealing with this application, but, when you're dealing with the applicant is indicating that that is the status of the building, right? But there's no requirement for us to go in to validate, that's not a part of the process. They're indicating it's a provincially owned building, presumably with the crisis in housing, they wouldn't have kept it vacant if there wasn't some kind of an issue there. I don't know that, but I guess to follow up with what the chair has indicated, there is no mechanism or requirement for us to go in to validate what their position. If it was a designated heritage property, which is a much more significant, it is actually designated, we would be certainly going in and doing a much more detailed assessment, but this property wasn't designated. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alex. One more, if that's okay. I just have a question, and again, if I understand it correctly, the darker black part is metal siding, and then the top 2 floors are wooden siding. Am I understanding that correctly, Emily?
Thank you, through the chair.
Sorry.
So the siding with the natural tone on that's shown on level 2 and 3, that's the wood siding that they're proposing. Whereas on the ground level, they're proposing vertical aluminum siding in the warmer tone as well. So that is reflected in the darker siding here, and that is conforms with the requirement for the 500 lot area, the design standards, the proposed aluminum siding.
I guess I'm just wondering, why would we have aluminum on the bottom and wood up top? And again, I'm asking this as not a building person and at all. But I was just thinking from an aesthetic point of view, I'm wondering if there's a reason for it, and maybe if you could just shed some light on that. Alex, look, he's eager to answer it over there.
I don't know that I'm eager, but the issue with this, the Design Review Board is a different entity than the Heritage Board. So the Heritage Board is always about keeping a heritage property the way that it was originally intended or designed, trying to keep within that form of the design of that building, the architectural style. When you get into these new buildings in the downtown, and you're trying to ensure that the building reads to the public that it's a product of its own time. So we're not trying to mimic the old heritage properties that were there.
Okay.
So this is done by design. It's not done to be sort of contrary to what's being intended.
Similar to what we did on 275 Kent Street, just with the back of...
Correct.
The facade remained the same on the front, but we don't have a facade to maintain here, so...
Right. And, if you think of the Campbell Lee building is a really good example, there's lots of debate in the city in regard to how the two buildings, that the Campbell Lee building at the bottom of Queen Street is a very modern office building attached to a designated building. And again, that was all by design, how that would work. So, if it's an existing building and we're working on an existing building, you try to keep the integrity of that building. If it's a brand new building, and if you think of it this way, If you in 40 years, and if you're looking back at this building, you need to see that there's been an evolution in the architecture of the city, that not everything looks like it stopped in 1940.
Right.
Because if the whole downtown was designated as a heritage area, that may be the case, but, the downtown and the design guidelines in the downtown are intended to allow the city to evolve, and when a building comes down, that the new building be a product again of its own time, and this one would be an example of that. That doesn't preclude the fact you may not, may not like the design, but that's the intent. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for that, Alex.
I think Peter Fellows addressed your question, Norman. It's up on the screen, the second paragraph, that the vertical aluminum siding is intended to break up the mass of the building and to provide some interest at street level. And again, I know that the extreme challenge that any designer is working under today to bring in housing costs that are within the budget range for affordable housing. So the modesty of the design, I think, is also reflecting the demand and the capacity to incorporate, rational design that is going to be reasonable.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, sorry, it does bring up an interesting point, because I understand what they're trying to achieve, and I think the simplicity of it. But when you look at the 500 lot design standards, it does talk about respecting the kind of primary facade plane. So if there's mostly two-story buildings, then usually they're asking for the change in material to happen above that. I'm sure there's a durability kind of issue potential. Maybe it's a good thing to have the kind of the aluminum siding down low. I don't know how thick it is. For me, it's just the high contrast. I almost feel like I'm looking at the foundation of the house, the way it's been pulled up, if it was maybe not so high contrast. But I understand what they're trying to achieve. There are some points that, if you look down Hensley Street, some of the co-op housing that's there are 3 stories there, and they're shingled right to the ground floor. And I think as successfully as this, but if it's about cost, and I know that they're trying to, they've done well to get Cape Cod siding on the upper floors, and it's wood siding, and it's hard in that area. They're trying to do it on a budget. So that's just some comments, general comments, that a different perspective on where you break that scale up.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I that was kind of my point, was that I was trying to blend it in with the streetscape, trying to make that work as best we could. And I understand it's distinct from heritage, but we are in a heritage area. I was just trying to see if there's ways to kind of meld that or blend it, or because most people are going to be seeing the street level. And if that's what they're seeing that. And I can appreciate the affordability piece, Brian. Just trying to make it all kind of fit within, get the much needed affordable housing, respect the area, and try and maintain it as best as we can. So that was just kind of my same point for that.
And just a reminder, this was not a heritage distinct building, was it? Okay.
I'm not really certain how old this building is. I would suspect 1900, 1910, but I'm just, it may be in the report, but I don't have that right at the tip of my fingers.
Thank you, through the chair. So I could clarify that. I believe it was in the report regarding the variance application. I just need a moment to pull that up, but I can clarify that.
Thank you, Emily. While we're waiting for that, does anyone else have any questions? And if not, I guess we would need a motion.
I would move that we accept the recommendation to approve the plans as proposed.
And do we have someone to second that motion? That was moved by Brian Gillis, seconded by Chris Fournier. And just to clarify, this does not now go on to council. This ends here in this committee. Yeah. So, so we have a motion on the floor. Does anyone have any additional questions before we vote? Okay, question called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. All those opposed? Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
I'm just recalling, it's not in the report, but I do have a record somewhere. In speaking with the heritage researcher for the city, we did go through the hoops of confirming and that no heritage designation applied. If I recall correctly, I believe it was the latter of the 1800s, like 1890s period when it was constructed. But I'd have to confirm that.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. So introduction of new business? Seeing none, I will have a motion to adjourn. Moved by Chris Fournier, seconded by Brian Gillis. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your rest of your day.